They thought in the Old Testament when the Messiah came, all sins, yeah, will all right, be forgiven and all that, but he was also going to set up an earthly kingdom right here, and the Jewish people were going to rule. And, there's several fights going on among the disciples who's going to sit at the right hand of Jesus during this whole thing. So what they couldn't see in the Old Testament was there's two comings of Christ. One was the suffering servant when he died on the cross, and the other is the coming king. They didn't see that. We see that today. And he says, look, I'm going to come again. And he promises that, by the way, in verse 11. We'll get to in just a moment. But he said, in the meantime, you've got to do something. He said, the last thing, and this is what he was saying, the last thing I've done is to rise from the dead. And the last thing I'm going to do now is ascend up into heaven. And the next time I come, I'll come for my church. In the meantime, build it up. In the meantime, get more people in it. So I have more people to come for. He says, you're going to receive power, you're going to be witnesses. And then look in verse 9. And after he had said these things, he was lifted up, and while they were looking on, a cloud received him out of their sight. This is called the Ascension into heaven. And we just read this and just kind of go by it and think, well, there's nothing much to that. I mean, he's just kind of going up into heaven and that's it. But listen, the Ascension is so important for us as witnesses. I don't know how much the disciples realized it at the time, but after the day of Pentecost, I think they realized what the ascension was all about. Because here's what Paul said in Ephesians 1. He says, which he brought about in Christ, when he raised him from the dead and seated him at his right hand, the place of power, and in heavenly places, far above rule and authority and power and dominion and every name that is named, not only in this age, but also in the one to come. And he put all things in subjection under his feet and gave him as head over all things to the church. What's he saying here? He's saying that Jesus ascended up into heaven. And when he ascended, he sat down at the right hand of the Father, a place of authority, a place of rulership. Jesus is the sovereign Lord of the universe.